Zuko's character development was beautifully written, and I'm sure that we can all relate to some aspects of his journey to finding his destiny. So if you're going through a phase in your life where you're looking for some direction, learning from Zuko may give you some insight. Zuko was born a prince of the Fire Nation, son of Fire Lord Ozai, and we learn very early on about his mission to capture Aang, the Avatar, as he believed that was his way to restore his honor. We learn later on that the reason why he was so obsessed with chasing the Avatar was because he spoke out of turn in a war meeting. His punishment was being banished from the Fire Nation, and he was burned on the left side of his face by his father, leaving a scar. He was told that he had to capture the Avatar to regain his honor. Zuko then went on a long path to discover his destiny. He went from thinking he had to capture the Avatar to regain his honor to realizing that nothing external can give him honor. Later, instead of trying to capture the Avatar, he decided to help the Avatar take down his father to bring balance to the 4 nations. In this video, I will point out 4 things that Zuko did that allowed him to fulfill his destiny. Firstly, he realized that he was chasing his father's love and approval, which he found out didn't solve his internal problems. Throughout a lot of the show, we see Zuko chasing Aang. Zuko felt ashamed of what happened when his father burned his face and thought that the only way to regain his honor was to capture the Avatar. In actuality, what Zuko really wanted wasn't to capture the Avatar. He simply longed for the love and acceptance from his father, which he thought would come if he captured the Avatar, which he realized later on.
I thought it was my honor that I wanted, but really, I was just trying to please you.
On his journey trying to capture the Avatar, he traveled to different lands and even solo traveled for a bit. One day, he received a visit from his sister Azula, who told him that Fire Lord Ozai, their father, regretted Zuko's banishment and welcomed him home. With the promise of the exact thing he wanted, Zuko was delighted. However, this later turned out to be a trap. Zuko and his uncle realized this when one of the guards accidentally revealed Azula's plans.
Raise the anchors! We're taking the prisoners home!
This event made Zuko question if the entire premise of capturing the Avatar to restore his honor was arbitrary in the first place. This internal conflict led him to a pivotal moment where he cut his hair, symbolizing that he had started to let go of his ties with the Fire Nation. As Zuko continued his journey with his uncle, he saw different points of view and realized how other people saw the Fire Nation. He even saw someone else's scars and realized that they were both victims of the Fire Nation.
It's okay. They've hurt me too.
He also experienced what it was like to live as an ordinary person and a refugee, someone who didn't have the status of prince. One time, he and his uncle even begged for money, which caused him to feel even more shame. While in the Earth Kingdom, he did many questionable things. He stole food, money, and even an ostrich horse from the very person who took care of his uncle and fed them food. However, he grew from all these experiences, and with his uncle's guidance, we started to see that Zuko had good inside of him. On one occasion, when he was solo traveling in the Earth Kingdom, a boy was captured by police officers who were bullies. When the policeman refused to release the boy, a fight erupted. He tried to free the boy without using firebending, as that would reveal that he was from the Fire Nation. Zuko was losing the fight when we got to see a flashback of Zuko with his mother when he was young. His mother told him years ago,
"Remember this, Zuko. No matter how things may seem to change, never forget who you are."
He then decided that doing the right thing outweighed protecting his identity, and decided to use firebending to achieve what he believed was right, even though he knew that revealing his identity would cause others to perceive him negatively. This was one of the first times Zuko accepted who he was and did what he believed was right, despite what others thought of him.
My name is Zuko, son of Ursa and Fire Lord Ozai, Prince of the Fire Nation and heir to the throne.
This was one of the first few occasions where we saw Zuko start to let go of the need for external validation. As time progressed, we saw Zuko realize more and more how the Fire Nation has hurt many people, and he empathized with them. However, when his sister Azula was in the process of capturing the Earth Kingdom capital, she asked him to join her and promised him everything he ever wanted once again.
I need you, Zuko. I've plotted every move of this day, this glorious day in Fire Nation history, and the only way we win is together. At the end of this day, you will have your honor back. You will have Father's love. You will have everything you want.
With the promise of the thing he wanted most, he reverted back to his old self and decided to act against the Avatar. He went against his uncle's advice to gain what he has always wanted, his father's approval. After the battle, he arrived back home, where he finally got the approval he longed for. However, he was faced with the realization that he wasn't being authentic, and he was angry with himself.
For so long I thought that if my dad accepted me, I'd be happy. I'm back home now, my dad talks to me. He even thinks I'm a hero. Everything should be perfect, right? I should be happy now. But I'm not. I'm angrier than ever and I don't know why.
And when his sister and friends pressed him and asked him who he was angry at, Zuko admitted the truth.
I'm angry at myself!
He then decided to do what he believed was right and let go of the external validation he received. He left his status as prince, wrote a goodbye letter to his girlfriend, confronted his father, fully accepted that what his father did to him was cruel, and then left to join Team Avatar. This was a pivotal time for Zuko, as we saw him change from seeking external validation from the very person who hurt him to realizing that the only person he needed validation from was himself. If we really go deep into our true motives for our actions, a lot of the time the root of our pursuits is just the want to feel a certain emotion, and it's often somehow linked to wanting to feel the love and approval from one of our caregivers. In Zuko's case, he felt a lot of shame, guilt, and anger after being banished. He thought that by capturing the Avatar and earning his father's approval, he would no longer feel these emotions and feel love instead. However, when Zuko actually got his father's admiration, he quickly realized that his feelings of shame, guilt, and anger would not simply be replaced by love if what he did to get it caused him to perceive himself negatively. He realized that his emotions were more dependent on how he viewed himself rather than how others viewed him. Perhaps the love and approval that we crave from our caregivers may not necessarily give us the internal fulfillment we long for, and the best place to seek that love and approval is within ourselves. Overall, if we believe that some sort of external validation will solve all our life's problems, we will eventually realize that it doesn't. Sometimes this realization only occurs after attaining the exact external validation we desire. For so long, Zuko craved his father's validation, but when he finally got it, he didn't feel the emotions he expected to, and realized that true fulfillment comes from within. This led him to choose to break free from what he once thought was his destiny and embrace his own authenticity, even if it meant relinquishing his status and facing the consequences of his actions. When we are authentic, social status being stripped away from us matters less, because the knowingness in our hearts that we did the right thing is far more valuable and cannot be bought. Zuko's story is an important reminder that the path to self-discovery often involves investigating our true motives behind our actions and finding the courage to embrace our truest selves. Secondly, Zuko listened to his mentor. Throughout his journey from being banished to joining Team Avatar, he had access to his Uncle Iroh's wisdom. Uncle Iroh often urged Zuko to question his true destiny and encouraged him to do good. Although Zuko resented Iroh at times, he eventually understood that his Uncle Iroh only had his best interests at heart and came to deeply appreciate him. For instance, when Zuko was a refugee in the Earth Kingdom and times were tough, Zuko resorted to stealing food and money. Uncle Iroh acknowledged the difficult circumstances and reassured Zuko that there was nothing to be ashamed of. In this conversation, we can see that Zuko relied mostly on external validation for a sense of self-worth, believing that there was no honor for him without capturing the Avatar. And we can see Uncle Iroh questioning the idea that capturing the Avatar would solve all his life's problems.
There's no honor for me without the Avatar.
Zuko, even if you did capture the Avatar, I'm not so sure it would solve our problems. Not now.
Without being able to hold on to the idea that capturing the Avatar would restore his honor, he was in despair.
And there is no hope at all.
Uncle Iroh then gave Zuko a brilliant piece of wisdom.
You must never give in to despair. Allow yourself to slip down that road and you surrender to your lowest instincts. In the darkest times, hope is something you give yourself. That is the meaning of inner strength.
This essentially helped Zuko question if achieving the external validation of making his father proud if he captured the Avatar would actually provide him with everything he wanted, and he became aware of the idea that true strength and honor may come from within. On another occasion, Zuko, Azula, and Aang found themselves in a battle. After Azula hurt Uncle Iroh with lightning, Zuko recognized that his firebending skills were lacking in comparison to his sisters and turned to his uncle for guidance. Uncle Iroh tried to teach Zuko how to firebend lightning, but explained that
to perform the technique requires peace of mind.
When Zuko tried, he just created explosions in his face and couldn't do the technique successfully. His Uncle Iroh explained that
you will not be able to master lightning until you have dealt with the turmoil inside you.
What turmoil?
Zuko, you must let go of your feelings of shame if you want your anger to go away.
But I don't feel any shame at all. I'm as proud as ever.
Prince Zuko, pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame.
What Iroh meant by this is that pride and shame are closely connected. Zuko's pride stemmed from being the prince of the Fire Nation and his desire to live up to his father's expectations by capturing the Avatar to regain his honor and his status as prince. However, this same pride also fueled his feelings of shame when he failed to meet these expectations. Iroh was teaching Zuko that true humility, the ability to accept himself as he is and recognize his own value without the need to prove it to others, is the key to overcoming shame. By embracing humility, Zuko could let go of his obsession with external validation and find inner peace. It was interesting to note that Zuko's first successful redirection of lightning occurred during his confrontation with his father, where he no longer desired his validation to feel worthy himself, symbolizing his growth and inner strength. Lastly, when the Avatar's bison was chained up by the corrupt Earth Kingdom, Uncle Iroh found Zuko about to capture the Avatar's bison for himself. Uncle Iroh questioned his motives. He encouraged him to find his own destiny and not pursue someone else's desires, pawned off as his own, as you could see in this conversation.
I know my own destiny, Uncle.
Is it your own destiny? Or is it a destiny someone else has tried to force on you? I'm begging you, Prince Zuko. It's time for you to look inward and begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And what do you want?
This conversation made Zuko realize that he needed to forge his own path, and what he believed was his destiny may have actually been a move in somebody else's chess game. Overall, if you're going through a period of feeling lost or being unsure what to do next, it can often be useful to talk to someone who has your best interests at heart and has gone through a similar process themselves. Zuko's relationship with Uncle Iroh teaches us that mentors can provide invaluable guidance and support, helping us navigate our struggles and find our true path. Another thing Zuko did was learn about his ancestry to gain more clarity about the inner conflict within him. After Zuko was welcomed back to the Fire Nation, he was very confused about right and wrong. He often visited his uncle, who was in prison, for guidance. Zuko often got angry at Iroh because he was deeply conflicted and hurt. He knew his uncle's stance on him choosing to go against the Avatar, and accepting that his uncle Iroh was right would mean confronting his own insecurities, failures, and the painful truth that his quest for his father's approval and honor were misguided. One day, he received a scroll instructing him to learn about his ancestry.
You need to know the story of your great-grandfather's demise. It will reveal your own destiny.
Intrigued and wanting clarity, he snuck into the catacombs to learn about the history of the Fire Nation. He learned that both his great-grandfathers were best friends when they were young. However, as his two great-grandfathers grew older, one of them became the Fire Lord who started the war, and the other one was the Avatar who tried to stop him. This revelation was profound for Zuko. He learned that part of the reason for his lifelong internal conflict was this inherited struggle between his great-grandfathers. On one side, he had the legacy of Fire Lord Sozin, a symbol of ambition, power, and war. On the other side, there was Avatar Roku, a symbol of balance, peace, and duty. Zuko realized that this duality had always been a part of him, contributing to his confusion and the turmoil he felt about his identity and destiny. Understanding this ancestral conflict helped Zuko see why he had always felt torn between two paths. It wasn't just about the external pressures of his father's demands and Uncle Iroh's advice, it was also about reconciling these two opposing legacies within himself, regarding events that had occurred generations before he was born. By learning about his great-grandfather's history, Zuko could see the broader picture of his internal struggle and the reasons behind his actions and feelings. Overall, we can see that Zuko benefited from looking at the past to see why he had always been so conflicted internally. If we are confused about how to act, it is often because we have some sort of unresolved internal conflict. Sometimes this conflict may not necessarily be our fault and may stem back to generations before us. However, as Uncle Iroh said,
"What happened generations ago can be resolved now by you. Because of your legacy, you alone can cleanse the sins of our family and the Fire Nation. Born in you, along with all the strife, is the power to restore balance to the world."
Understanding the two sides of ourselves, which may involve looking into the past, may help resolve our inner turmoil. Lastly, Zuko learned to harness his energy from a different source and went back to the origins of firebending to learn about its original pure intent. After Zuko confronted his father, he eventually joined Team Avatar as Aang's firebending teacher. However, when Aang asked for a demonstration, he couldn't firebend like he used to. Aang pointed out that Zuko's firebending had always been fueled by rage, and he no longer had enough anger to fuel his bending the way he used to. Toph, another member of Team Avatar, recommended that Zuko go back to the origins of firebending to learn how to draw his firebending from a different source. Although dragons were the original source of firebending, the team believed that dragons had been extinct for many years. They knew, however, that an ancient civilization called the Sun Warriors had once existed and were the first people to learn from the dragons. Despite believing the Sun Warriors were no longer around, Zuko and Aang decided to visit the remnants of the ancient civilization to see if they could learn anything. To their surprise, they learned that not only was the Sun Warrior civilization still around, but so too were the dragons. Here, they were judged by the dragons to see if they were worthy of learning their art of firebending. After the dragons judged them, they were deemed worthy and were shown the meaning of firebending. They both had originally thought that firebending was about destruction, but after seeing the beautiful fire from the dragons, they realized that firebending's true essence was about energy and life. This new understanding allowed Zuko to tap into a more sustainable source of power. As Zuko said himself,
Hunting you was my drive. It was my purpose. So when I joined you, I lost sight of my inner fire. But now I have a new drive. I have to help you defeat my father and restore balance to the world.
From this, we can learn that while we can often draw our energy from emotions such as shame, guilt, and anger, We can also draw energy from wanting to serve and bring balance. Like Zuko, transitioning from drawing our emotions from shame, guilt, and anger to wanting to bring balance can result in an immediate loss of power. However, if we go back to the beginnings, we can rediscover its pure intent and harness a new, more powerful source of energy. We could see how much Zuko improved when he dueled his sister in Agnikai and won later on. We can also notice how he no longer grunts when he firebends, symbolizing that his new source of energy no longer comes from emotions such as shame, guilt, and anger. Zuko's journey to relearn firebending from its original source also highlights the importance of reconnecting with the original purpose and purity of our pursuits. Often, our craft can become contaminated by power, pride, and ego, causing its practice to diverge from its original pure purpose. Returning to its source can teach us how it was meant to be practiced and reveal its inherent beauty. By learning from the Sun Warriors and the dragons, Zuko and Aang discovered that firebending was not just a tool for war, but a vital force of life, capable of great beauty and creation. This profound lesson can be applied to many areas of our lives. When we find that our motivations and energy are waning, it may be time to revisit the origins of our passions and skills, how our craft came about, and why we started in the first place. Understanding the foundational principles and the pure intent behind our actions can help us find new sources of inspiration and strength. Zuko's journey teaches us that true power comes from understanding and embracing the positive and life-affirming aspects of our abilities, rather than relying on emotions of shame, guilt, and anger. Zuko's journey shows the complexities of self-discovery and personal growth. Throughout the series, we saw Zuko learn that how he viewed himself was more important than how others viewed him. He took advice from a mentor who has been down a similar path. He explored his ancestral roots and found a more sustainable source of energy to fuel his pursuits. By confronting his deepest fears and insecurities, Zuko was able to break free from the constraints of his past and embrace his authentic self. Moreover, Zuko's story illustrates that by understanding the history of our past and those that came before us, we have the power to heal and resolve what happened generations ago to bring balance and peace. So, if you find yourself at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take, remember Zuko's story. Instead of pursuing someone else's approval to feel whole and complete, we learn that true fulfillment and honor come from within. As you saw with Zuko, it's not an easy journey, and it was an iterative process where he made many mistakes along the way. But, as Uncle Iroh said,
You know, Prince Zuko, destiny is a funny thing. You never know how things are going to work out, but if you keep an open mind and an open heart, I promise you will find your own destiny someday.